In October 1958, an extraordinary man was elected Pope and took the name John the 23rd. As a little child, I was taken to Rome to receive his blessing, and throughout my life, I have felt that blessing of good Pope John sustaining me. Elected at the age of 76, he had a brief reign of only 5 years. They intended to put someone in who would be there a short time and wouldn't do too much damage. Were they ever wrong? This man revolutionized the church, opened it up to the modern world, and threw his own arms open to embrace all people. Stirred by a passion for justice, tolerance, peace, and brotherhood, he welcomed all to the banquet of God's love and won the affection of the entire world, Catholic and non-Catholic alike. In Italy, he was known as Il Papa Buono, the good Pope. And a French author wrote, "If Pius XI inspired respect, and Pius XII inspired admiration, John the 23rd aroused affection, indeed more, love, in the hearts of all." Many stories are told of this remarkable man who won over the whole world by his smile and quick wit. Stories I would like to share today. By no means a handsome man, his nose was too big, his ears too big, and he was very fat. When he was elected Pope, he looked at himself in the mirror, shook his head, and said, "Oh Lord, this man is going to be a disaster on television." Quite the opposite was true. When moving into the Vatican, he watched as workmen unloaded crates of his belongings. He called out to them, "How are you doing there, my sons?" Thinking one of his companions was joking with him, the head workman yelled back a few choice words and said, "Stop fooling around and give me a hand." So the Pope did. He walked over and helped with the boxes. When they realized what was happening, the workmen were mortified. But Pope John just pulled out a bottle of wine, sat down on the crates, and enjoyed a drink with them. He loved to sneak out of the Vatican and go on walks, visiting the sick and the poor. The horrified old Vatican cardinals complained, as they always did and always do. "They tell me I am going out too much during the day," he lamented. "Very well then, I'll start going out at night." And that's exactly what he did. One time he was visiting the Hospital of the Holy Spirit, run by nuns. The Mother Superior greeted him respectfully, saying, "Holy Father, I am the Superior of the Holy Spirit." He said, "Good for you, sister. I am only the vicar of Jesus Christ." He used to love to walk around the Vatican gardens. The old rule was that when the Pope was in the garden, no one was allowed to go up to the cupola of the basilica lest someone catch a glimpse of him. He said, "Let them look at me. I'm not doing anything I'm not supposed to." Well, one day as he was walking through those gardens, workmen saw him, dropped their tools, and ran away. John asked, "Why did those poor men have to leave?" He was told, "It must be done for security purposes." "Security purposes," he said. "I wouldn't have hurt them." When John was first elected, a 12-year-old boy named Bruno wrote to him, "Dear Pope, I am having a dilemma. I don't know what I want to be in life. I am thinking of being either a policeman or a pope. What do you think?" Pope John wrote back to him and said, I recommend you be a policeman. Anybody can be a pope, and the fact that I am pope proves that. But if ever you come to Rome, look me up, and I would be very happy to sit down with you and talk over these things." He loved children. One day he went to the Bambino Gesù Hospital for Children. Delighted little ones called out from their sick beds, "Giovanni, Giovanni!" One little boy called him over and said, "I know you are the Pope, but I can't see you because I am blind." Moved to tears, the Pope sat down on the boy's bed and just held him in his arms for a long time. The boy could not see him, but he felt his touch. Those of us who never saw him can still feel his touch after all these years. He wasn't much given to protocol, but treated everyone the same. When President Kennedy and his wife were visiting, the Pope asked the Monsignor in charge of protocol, "What am I supposed to call her?" He was told sternly, "You may call her Madam President, or you may call her Mrs. Kennedy." He went into the room, ran over to her with outstretched arms, and called out, "Jackie!" For Pope John, there were no distinctions between human beings. At that time, the leader of the communist world was Nikita Khrushchev. One day, Khrushchev's daughter and son-in-law came to visit the Pope. After a marvelous time together, while saying goodbye, Pope John said, "I know you consider yourselves atheists, but please be so kind as to accept the blessing of an old man for your little children back home." Everyone was welcome in the heart of good Pope John. For him, religious differences meant nothing either. He used to say, "We don't want to have a historical trial here. We don't want to figure out who was right and who was wrong so long ago. We can all be blamed. What we need to do is just get together again and fulfill the dream of Jesus that all may be one." One day an old Anglican priest visited, and the Pope noticed that the man was holding a prayer book that was worn and completely falling apart. The next day a gift package arrived at the man's house. It was Pope John's own personal prayer book, almost as worn out as the other. An American congressman by the name of Brooks Hayes introduced himself to the Pope and said challengingly, "I am a Baptist." The Pope extended his hand warmly and said, "Well, I'm John." This Pope regarded the whole world as his family. One night, as he stood at his window addressing the crowds in the square, he looked down and saw all sorts of people there, from the highest nobility and the wealthy to the lowliest street sweepers and homeless. With tears in his eyes, he remarked, "Just look at them. The whole family is here." That was precisely his notion of Catholicism, the whole family. Everyone is here. No one is left out. "People of all kinds come to my poor fountain," he used to say. "My function is to give drink to all. The church is not an archaeological museum, but the ancient fountain which is there to quench the thirst of this and every generation." On the evening of June 3rd, 1963, the feast of St. Kevin, Pope John the 23rd went home to God. Through him, the Church had become once more a home to all, to saints and sinners, believers and unbelievers alike. He knew no boundaries. He knew no strangers. He opened doors and windows, stretched out his arms to the whole world, obliterated distances, obstacles, and age-old disputes with just a kind word and a smile. For an all too brief moment, he showed us what the Church could look like, stripped of human pride and lust for power, cleansed of judgmentalness and exclusion. For him, all had a place at the wonderful banquet of God's love. In the eyes and the heart of this peasant pope, we were given a glimpse of the truly Catholic, truly universal, all-embracing, all-loving, pure Church of God.